Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning. Your alarm goes off at 6:47 a.m. You hit snooze twice. Then you drag yourself out of bed, splash water on your face, and stare at yourself in the mirror for just a second too long. You're tired. Not sleepy tired, life tired. You get dressed, skip breakfast because there's no time, sit in traffic for 40 minutes, and walk into a job that pays you just enough to keep showing up. You work 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours. You come home, you eat something, you scroll your phone, you sleep, and then you do it all again. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this quiet voice, this little whisper that says, is this it? Is this really what my life is supposed to look like? Here's what's terrifying. Millions of people live exactly like this, not for a week, not for a year, but for decades. Their entire working life. They're not lazy, they're not stupid, they're not unlucky, they're just stuck, trapped inside a system they never learned to see. And the scariest part, most of them don't even know they're in it. So today, we're going to talk about why that happens. And more importantly, what's actually keeping them there. Because the answer isn't what most people think. It's not about income. It's not about education. It's not even about how hard you work. I know people with degrees who are broke. I know people working 60-hour weeks who can barely pay rent. The reason most people stay poor their entire life runs much deeper than money. It's psychological. It's behavioral. It's almost invisible, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. By the end of this video, you're going to see something you cannot unsee. You're going to understand the real mechanism behind financial struggle, and once you see it, the entire game changes. Stay with me. This is important. Most people believe that being poor is about not having enough money. That sounds obvious, right? Of course, poverty is about money, but that belief, that simple, surface-level belief, is exactly what keeps people stuck. Because if poverty is just about money, then the solution is just get more money, work more, get a raise, find a second job, and millions of people try exactly that. They hustle harder, they sacrifice weekends, they pick up extra shifts, and they still end up in the same place 5 years later, wondering what went wrong. Here's the truth that almost nobody talks about. Being poor is not a financial condition. It's a pattern, a deeply wired set of habits, beliefs, and decisions that recreate the same financial reality over and over and over again, regardless of how much money flows through your hands. Think about that. Most people think the problem is the amount of money, but the real problem is what happens to the money once it arrives. Let me show you what I mean. Meet Piyush. Piyush is 34. He works as a project coordinator at a mid-sized company. He earns decent money, not great, but decent, around $52,000 a year. On paper, that sounds okay. That's over $4,000 a month. But here's Piyush reality. Rent takes $1,400. Car payment $380. Insurance $210. Phone $85. Subscriptions. He forgot he had another $60 or so. Groceries, utilities, gas, that's another $600 easily. And before Piyush has even thought about his life, over $2,700 is already gone. What's left gets absorbed. A dinner out because he's exhausted and doesn't want to cook. New shoes because his old ones wore out. A small emergency, a car repair, a medical bill, something that wipes out whatever he managed to save. And at the end of the month, Piyush has almost nothing left. Sometimes, literally nothing. Sometimes he's using one credit card to cover what another credit card already charged. And Piyush tells himself next month will be different. Next month, I'll be more careful. Next month, I'll save more. But next month looks exactly the same. Now, here's what makes this story painful, and I want you to really feel this. Piyush is not irresponsible. He's not blowing money on vacations or luxury items. He's just living normally, the way most people live, and he is slowly, quietly going nowhere. Now multiply Piyush by tens of millions of people. Different names, different cities, different salaries, but the same loop, the same quiet desperation, the same exhaustion, the same feeling of running as fast as you can and somehow standing completely still. That feeling has a name, and understanding it changes everything. But here's where things get interesting, because this isn't just about budgeting. It's not about cutting your coffee or canceling Netflix. What I'm about to show you goes much deeper than that, and it has everything to do with how your brain was programmed to think about money long before you ever earned a single dollar. There's a concept in behavioral economics called the poverty trap, but not in the way most economists describe it. I'm not talking about government policy or systemic inequality, though those things are real. I'm talking about the psychological poverty trap, the one that lives inside your own mind. Here's how it works. From the time you were a child, you absorbed beliefs about money, not from textbooks, from watching the adults around you, from the conversations at the dinner table, from what was said and what was never said about wealth, about rich people, about what money means and what it costs to have it. If you grew up hearing things like money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy, or we can't afford that, your brain filed those away, not as opinions, as facts, as the way the world works. And those beliefs, invisible, automatic, deeply buried, quietly shape every financial decision you make as an adult. You feel guilty spending money on yourself. You feel anxious when you have too much money because somewhere deep down, you don't believe you deserve it. You find ways, unconsciously, to return to the financial state that feels familiar, even if that state is struggle. Psychologists call this your financial set point. Think of it like a thermostat. If a room gets too hot, the air conditioning kicks in. If it gets too cold, the heat turns on. Either way, the temperature returns to where it was set. Your financial set point works the same way, and until you change the setting, you will always return to the same place no matter how much money comes in. Now, let me break down exactly how this trap operates in real life, because once you see the mechanics, you can't unsee them. It starts with what I call the earn and drain cycle. Money comes in, and almost immediately, lifestyle expands to meet it. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is one of the most silent wealth destroyers in existence. You get a raise. Great. Now you have a slightly nicer apartment, a slightly newer car, a few more subscriptions, a few more dinners out. The raise disappears and your stress level stays exactly the same. This is not weakness. This is biology. Your brain is wired to adapt. Whatever becomes normal becomes baseline, and your spending naturally creeps up to match whatever you're earning, leaving the gap between income and savings perpetually, frustratingly small. Then comes the second part of the mechanism, reactive spending. Most people spend money reactively, not intentionally. Something bad happens. A car breaks down, a relationship ends, stress builds up, and money becomes the emotional release valve. Shopping, food, entertainment, anything to feel better right now. And this is key right now. That's the third gear of the trap. The inability to delay gratification. The psychological pull of immediate pleasure over future security is extraordinarily powerful. Researchers at Stanford ran a famous experiment. They offered children a marshmallow and told them if they waited 15 minutes without eating it, they'd get two. The children who could wait went on to have dramatically better financial outcomes as adults. Now think about that in the context of your financial decisions. Every time you choose the immediate purchase over the long-term investment, you're eating the marshmallow. And there is an entire industry, advertising, consumer credit, social media, specifically engineered to make you eat the marshmallow as fast as possible. The system profits when you can't wait, and so the cycle continues. But why do we keep falling for it? Why, even when we know better, do we keep making the same choices? Because knowledge is not the same as behavior. And this is the part that frustrates people the most. You can watch every financial video on YouTube. You can read every personal finance book ever written. You can know exactly what you should do and still not do it. Because your financial behavior isn't driven by your intellect. It's driven by your identity. Here's what I mean. Deep down, most people who struggle financially have an unconscious story about who they are. I'm not good with money. I'm not the kind of person who gets rich. Money has always been a struggle for people like me. These aren't thoughts they consciously think. They're feelings, their identity statements buried so deep they feel like truth. And your brain's job, its primary function, is to keep you consistent with who you believe you are. So if you believe, on a deep level, that you're someone who struggles financially, your brain will protect that identity. It will find ways to justify the spending, to dismiss the savings, to explain away the opportunity. This is not a character flaw. It is a survival mechanism turned against you. Your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is, it was designed with someone else's programming, and the consequences of staying in this loop, they're not just financial. Think about what chronic financial stress does to a person over time. It destroys sleep. Studies show that financial worry is one of the leading causes of insomnia, and when you don't sleep, your decision-making deteriorates. Your emotional regulation weakens. You become more reactive, more impulsive, which leads to more poor financial decisions. It's a feedback loop that tightens over time. It damages relationships. Money is the #1 cause of conflict in marriages. Not cheating, not communication. Money. The tension of two people trying to navigate scarcity. Who spent what? Whose fault it is? Whose job it is to fix it? That tension corrodes intimacy slowly and completely. It limits your children. Not because you're a bad parent, but because financial stress is contagious. Children who grow up watching their parents stressed about money absorb that anxiety. They inherit those beliefs. They start the same cycle a generation later, unless something intervenes. And perhaps most devastatingly, it robs you of your sense of self. There is something profoundly demoralizing about working as hard as you can and feeling like you're going nowhere. It breeds a quiet hopelessness, a sense that trying doesn't matter, that the game is rigged, and that hopelessness, once it sets in, is the most expensive thing a person can carry. Let me show you something with numbers, because sometimes you need to see it written down to truly feel it. The average American household earns about $56,000 a year after tax over their working life. From age 22 to 65, that's 43 years of work. Multiply that out, and you get roughly $2.4 million that passes through a person's hands over their lifetime. $2.4 million. And the median retirement savings in America for people nearing retirement age? Around $87,000. Some studies put it even lower. So we're talking about people who received $2.5 million and reached the end of their working lives with almost none of it. Not because they didn't earn enough, because the system they operated inside consumed it all. Now think about this differently. If someone had taken just 10% of that lifetime income, just 10 cents out of every dollar, and invested it consistently over 43 years at an average market return of 7%, they would have over $1.2 million at retirement. Same income, same life, different one decision, and the outcome is completely different. That is the cost of the pattern. Not bad luck, not low income, the pattern. And this is where we need to talk about the most important financial concept most people never learn: opportunity cost. Every dollar you spend is not just a dollar spent, it is a dollar that can no longer grow. Every $200 you put on a credit card for something you don't really need doesn't just cost you $200. With interest, with the compounding you lost, with the time that money could have been working for you, it costs you closer to $2,000 over a decade. Compare two people, same salary. Person A spends everything they earn, keeps a small emergency fund, and figures they'll start investing later. Person B lives slightly below their means. Not dramatically, not miserably, just intentionally. They automate $400 a month into an index fund and forget about it. 25 years later, person A has their salary, their memories, and maybe a few nice things that have long since lost their value. Person B, without doing anything spectacular, without any special knowledge or insider tips, has roughly $330,000 sitting quietly in their account, earned by money they didn't even have to work for. The gap isn't talent. The gap isn't luck. It's one decision made consistently over time. And this is where I want to pause, because this is the most important part of this entire video. All the tactics in the world mean nothing if your identity doesn't shift. You can set up automatic investments. You can follow every piece of advice you've ever heard. But if somewhere inside you, you still believe that wealth is for other people, people smarter than you, luckier than you, born into the right family, then your subconscious will quietly, persistently find ways to return you to zero. The real transformation isn't in your bank account. It's in how you see yourself. Wealthy people, and I don't mean millionaires with yachts, I mean people who have built genuine financial security. They don't think about money the way most people do. They don't see money as something that comes and goes. They see it as something they direct, something they are responsible for, something that reflects decisions, not fate. They have an internal sense of agency, a belief that says, I am the author of my financial story, not the economy, not my boss, not my upbringing, even if my upbringing was hard. That shift from financial victim to financial author, that is the real turning point. And it starts not with a spreadsheet, but with a question. A simple, honest question. Who do I need to become to have the life I want? Not what do I need to do? Who do I need to become? Because here's what changes when that identity shifts. And it's not as dramatic as you might think. You stop buying things to feel better and start building things to be better. You start looking at a purchase and asking, does this serve the life I'm building? Or does it serve the feeling I'm avoiding right now? You start having different conversations with your partner, with yourself, about where money is going and why. Not stressful conversations, intentional ones. You start seeing small amounts differently. You stop thinking, it's only $50. It doesn't matter. Because you now understand that every dollar is a vote for the future you want. And $50 invested monthly for 30 years, quietly, without drama, becomes over $60,000. Small disciplines, compounded over time, produce extraordinary results. That is not motivation poster wisdom. That is mathematics. And your daily life, the way you feel when you wake up, slowly, genuinely, begins to change. Now, I have to be straight with you because you deserve that. This is not a get-rich-quick video. There is no secret. There is no one trick. Building financial security is slow. It is unglamorous. There will be months where it feels like nothing is changing. And if you are dealing with genuine systemic hardship, medical debt, wage theft, housing insecurity, those are real barriers that no mindset shift can fully overcome alone. I am not dismissing that. The system has real flaws, but within whatever circumstances you have, there is almost always more room than you currently believe. And the first step is always the same. Stop running the old pattern on autopilot. See it, name it, choose differently. That is where real change begins. Remember that person we talked about at the beginning, staring in the mirror on a Tuesday morning, tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix? That person isn't failing at life. They were handed a set of beliefs and a set of habits by parents who meant well, by a system that profits from their spending. And they've been running those programs ever since without ever questioning them. The fact that you're here, watching this, asking these questions, that already makes you different, not better. Just awake to the pattern. And once you're awake, you have a choice that you didn't have before. The life you want is not behind a lottery ticket or a perfect opportunity or a lucky break. It is behind a different version of yourself. One who sees money clearly, who spends intentionally, who invests patiently, who refuses to let an inherited story determine a chosen future. You can change the setting on the thermostat. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. And years from now, on some ordinary Tuesday morning, you'll wake up and the person in the mirror will look back at you with something completely different in their eyes. Not exhaustion, peace.